Hey, welcome back to the Leash Mind podcast, Mental Health and Dog Training. I'm your host, Mandy Bautel. On today's episode, I have a very fun and very beneficial conversation with Dr. Chris Pachel. Dr. Pachel is most known for his business, Animal Behavior Clinic in Portland, Oregon, where he is the owner and lead clinician. He is also the co-owner for Instinct Portland, as well as leadership team for Instinct Dog Training. So he is a busy man. He has got a lot of hats and he is working with a lot of people and has a lot of staff. How does one guy still have fun and enjoy his business and love showing up for what he does and continues to love what he does? Well, I mean, he keeps it real and, no one's perfect, but he has some great systems in place that I put air quotes on that because we don't really think of it as systems. It's more of just fine tuning and figuring out ways that you can enjoy your business and have these protocols in place so that you do enjoy your business. And it'll make more sense after you listen to the episode because I probably don't sound like I know what I'm talking about right now. But in this episode, we talk about imposter syndrome and boundaries, but not in the usual sense that we talk about them. We come from the angle of how can boundaries provide clarification and more information to us, to clients, to how we want to operate our businesses. So without divulging too much, I am just going to let us, dig into the episode. So get to it. I have Dr. Chris Pachel here with me. Chris, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this for months now.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Mandy. Thank you so much for reaching out and for making this possible. Thank you.
I'm so honored to do it. Yeah, of course. So to really even just get started, I want to know just with growing your business, with growing your career, how has it been trying to just prioritize your mental health within that? I know it's a big question.
It's a huge question, right? I guess I would start out by saying, kind of looking back, what I do right now was never on my radar as a destination.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. That is so interesting. I want to hear that.
Yeah. And so it's been sort of, in some ways, I would love to look back and go, oh, no, I had this elaborate 37-step plan wherein, in 2023, on the heels of a pandemic, I'd be to do this and blah, blah. No, none of this is scripted. It's all sort of kind of an evolution of paraphrasing what I hear from other people, just doing the next right thing. Like what makes sense based on the next pattern? Who do I need to reach out to get sort of that next evolution? And how do we do that? Right. So part of this is the awareness that I didn't plan for where I am right now, which also means that some of these struggles come out of left field because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what to predict or what was going to be a struggle, what was going to be easy, or what kind of landed somewhere in between. So I would say if anybody looks at, whether it's my success or I don't even like using that word, but sort of what I've accomplished within my career so far or some
Your
of the other
growth.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The growth process, when you look at that, if anybody were to look at that and be like, oh, well, clearly he's got his stuff together.
Clearly.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Put it this way. There's a reason why the camera points in this direction, right? If we kind of looked around even just this entire room, you'd see a very different picture of what this growth really looks like. So it's a messy process. And, and I guess, over the course of my career, gosh, I've been a veterinarian now for 21 years. I've been in the behavior space exclusively since 2004. Right?
Wow, I can't even wrap my head around that right now.
Me neither. Truthfully, it still catches me off guard, but it is an evolution, and I'll probably use that word a couple more times just because it's a process. And the things that I really sort of focused on in the beginning of getting certified and learning all of the things so that I could show up with the greatest level of expertise possible is still important to me. But it's actually less important than showing up with integrity and empathy and creating some of those safeguards that allow me to keep showing up 21 or, however many years into this process. Because in some ways, I kind of feel like I'm just getting warmed up. And so where are we going next? Right.
Right. I feel like you're so right. Because I've been following you for years. I have been a big fan for years. Specifically, the podcast episode you were on of Drinking from the Toilet with Hannah Brannigan, and you talked about behavioral euthanasia. I remember I reached out to you on my Woof Culture account, and just the way you approached it, and I do want to talk about that a little bit, but the way you approach that with your clients and the compassion and the empathy you have with that without, and I can tell it seems like you are not putting so much of yourself into it. You're not overexerting yourself. You're still having those boundaries. And it's just the way you approach that is just, I am so just, if everyone's watching on YouTube, I am bowing to Chris because it's just, no, it's amazing how you approach it. And you're so right that a lot of us forget that it's compassion and empathy is right there, but that's also why there's so much compassion fatigue. And so many of us don't know how to navigate that and bounce back from it. And it's so, so emotionally taxing on us. And that's why, we lose so many people that could be great trainers because they tap out. I tapped out after 4 years. I want to hear more about, you didn't expect it to even be this end goal. What were you expecting?
Right. So I came into veterinary medicine. I mean, truthfully, looking back to, gosh, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I was going to be a veterinarian. That was always the destination. Like, those folks are like, oh, I was going to be a fireman. I was going to be a teacher. I was going to be, no. I was going to be a veterinarian. That was the goal. That was the destination. That was the thing. And so when I came through veterinary school, I remember graduating thinking I'm not done with education, but I'm done with, residency. I
The
don't
hefty
want to
part.
do anything else. The hefty part. Yeah. Like every day's a school day, but I want to be done. I'm ready to go to work. I'm ready to have clients. I'm ready to kind of walk with those clients literally from birth to death with the animals that share their homes. And I was so excited for that as my career path. And it was probably a year and a half or so into that career path when I started doing a little bit more continuing education in the field of behavior. Always had an interest in it, but I kind of started to do a bit more of a deep dive based on some demands on some things that were coming into the practice. And I remember thinking at that point when I was finishing up this week-long intensive course that this is going to be the beginning of the end of my general practice career.
Oh, interesting. What kind of ignited that for you?
I don't honestly know. I just remember having this feeling of, wait a minute, you mean I can use the veterinary stuff and do this and sort of marry these different fields together in a way that allows me to act as almost a translator between the training and the veterinary field.
Seriously.
And sort of bridging that gap and being able to dive into both of those worlds simultaneously and learn how to integrate that information. I was like, yeah, sign me up. I don't know what's going to happen next, but that was my launch back into residency training, going down the deep dive of behavior. And so, whereas I know a lot of folks in the training world sort of landed here almost accidentally when they acquired a dog or an animal that challenged them to step up their game, and that was their inroad. That wasn't the case for me at all. I came from a completely different angle with actually very little training background prior to going back into specialty. Now, thankfully, I've, changed that over the years with training patients and incredible behavior consultants and training mentors over these decades. But it's been a process, right? And even when I started going down that pathway, I thought I was going to be a clinician. I was going to be working in the office and I was going to see patients and I was going to see clients. And that was going to be the work that I did from that point forward. All of the education, the podcast recordings, the travel, none of that was ever on my radar as an endpoint that I was aiming for.
Isn't that just like, I hate using the word beautiful, but that is quite beautiful to see how it just shifted when you just went all in and were like passionate about it. And when did you decide to just say, okay, this is what I'm going to go into. I want to really go in on this and expand it and grow with it. I'm just so fascinated by this.
Yeah, it's been an evolution, right? So when I went back into residency, that would have been 2000. I actually started a traditional residency program through a university with a mentor, and it was supposed to be a 3-year program. I walked away after year one, which is something that not everybody knows. I walked away because it wasn't a good fit, and I was really struggling. Speaking about mental health,
That's very healthy that you noticed that.
it was a dark place. I'm not gonna lie. It was a really it was a dark place. And I would say that I was as close to self-medicating with prescription medications that I had access to than any other point in my career. It was really rough. And I was in this emotional conflict of sort of, I know a residency is going to be hard. And so maybe this is just the hard that everybody talks about.
Oh,
So I just need to dig deeper and make it work. And I remember, right around that 1 year point that, there were a couple of conversations that happened that I basically said, you know what, if this is the hard that this takes, then this isn't for me, or I have to find another way to do this. And I walked away from that program and I scrambled a little. And thankfully I had some other connections that I was able to leverage. And within about a 2-month period of time was back into a new sort of self-created residency program. And I had a business of my own, and I was now a house call behavior vet. And there it is, right?
but see, that's just, oh, that's so awesome to hear that because I feel like so many times we get stumped and tripped up with, well, this is the system. This is what we have to follow. This is the protocol because no one else has broken that mold yet. But it takes the people noticing that this isn't healthy and this is not a space to grow in to break the mold and create their own. That's so, it's badass that you noticed that and we're just like, I'm just going to do my own thing. And now look at you. So that's just incredible. And I could see where you wouldn't see this being the end goal if that's where you started. And of course, I could totally see that. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool though.
Yeah, well, and it was I think the piece that sticks with me even all these years later is that I remember having a realization. And don't get me wrong, I learned a crazy amount of really solid information during that
Sure.
year that I was in that first program. And so I'm grateful that that's where I started. I really got my feet underneath me in a way that allowed me and has allowed me to be really confident in what I know and what I don't know over the course of my career. And yet I also sort of had the realization at that point in time that if I continued with that program, I wasn't going to end that section of my education being the clinician that I wanted to be. Just the feedback I was getting was smart feedback, but it wasn't feedback that was for me. And I had to walk away from that and do something different. And then in sort of leaning into that and kind of finding a path forward, that was sort of the next 3.5 years or so. Took me through sort of the end of 2008. Got my board certification with the exam and all of the other check boxes checked in 2010. And that's when I moved out here to Portland. And at that point, I had been running a house call behavior practice and learning the lessons that go along with stepping in and out of client homes, brand new homes, some safe situations, some really unsafe situations. And how do you maintain those boundaries? And how do you
Right.
communicate in a way that allows you to stay safe, that keeps your clients safe, and that also allows the client to feel supported and that they can trust you through the process versus the client who says, oh my gosh, he was so worried about putting up baby gates. He was afraid of my dog. I couldn't trust his recommendation.
Oh,
Right. And that happened a couple of times where the way in which I communicated to the client, where I was trying to express, hey, let's say your dog has a bite history. I'm coming into your home. I want to make sure that we're able to get an accurate assessment and move forward safely. And their takeaway was, this person is afraid of my dog. This isn't the therapist for us, right? So sidebar on that one, but just coming back into some of these other opportunities. Then as speaking engagements started to kind of filter in, it just kind of started to pick up steam, and I tapped back into some of the lessons that I learned, truthfully, back in undergrad as a student at a liberal arts college, going down the pathway of music performance. So I'm a vocalist and a pianist as
oh
well.
my God.
Very, very out of practice these days, but that's another
That's so
generation
cool
ago.
though. Another life. Very cool.
Right. And so the lessons you learn as a performer about how to show up, how to be aware of your
Ah,
acoustics, how to engage, how to not create a lot of distracting moments and movements that are going to take away from
the
what you're trying to
moment.
convey.
Yeah.
Yeah. all of those lessons that I had sort of put in a little box from undergrad
You're like, let me
started to
pull
come through.
some out of there. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love when we're able to tap into like past careers, past lives and utilize them. I was a hairstylist for 8 years from like 18 to 24. And then I moved into dog training and never thought I would use that again. And I'm like, wait, I know how to get people to talk. So this might work.
Ah,
So
I
yeah, I
love
love
it.
that. That's so cool. But I have so many things I want to ask about that. But before I lose my train of thought with my lovely ADHD brain, you just mentioned, from what you know and what you don't know, and I feel like that is a great way to dig into imposter syndrome. And I'm curious, when you decided to just branch off and do your own thing and step away, how was the imposter syndrome there? Did you have to really fight that, or did it just kind of come easy and you leaned into it?
Yeah, it did not come easy, and I think that the first thing that comes to mind is if I'm thinking about this now as when did I experience imposter syndrome? I would say how and when do I still
Yeah,
experience imposter syndrome
it's
because it's
ongoing.
ongoing.
Yeah.
It's ongoing, and I remember thinking about that from, the early days of being like, oh my gosh, so many people know so much more than I do. So many people would do this better. They would be better suited to the client. Who am I to think that I can be of help under these circumstances? I'm going to miss stuff. I'm going to say stuff wrong. All of that sort of, self-doubt, second guessing, all of those things was very much a part of that for me and continues to be. And I think the moment I think that I'm beyond that, something will happen that I'm a beginner again in some aspect of my life.
You get humbled at some point.
Absolutely. And so what I sort of, I think I've learned, I think this, I was probably well into my 40s by the time I sort of started to get comfortable with this,
Right.
which was, yeah, like we're all a beginner at something. And so how can I show up in a way that hopefully channels curiosity and allows me to see, to be curious as well as, I don't want to say cautious because that's not right, but I don't want to overstate what I think I know.
Mhm.
I don't want to go in and say, well, I saw this one case this one time, so therefore I'm going to
Give you this
apply that.
blanket. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not doing anybody any help by that versus saying, hey, you know what? I had this case this one time. I actually don't know if that's going to work here or not, but let's try it and let's figure out what that looks like in this particular scenario. And so the ability to sort of look at those situations and say, here's what I know, here's what I think, and gosh, here's this whole black box of stuff that I don't think I've got any clue about what's going on. And to recognize that all of those things can exist simultaneously. And if there's a gap in my knowledge, cool, then my job is not to know those things. My job is to tap into those who do know those things and work collaboratively, right? And that's, I think sometimes, especially when we get into the field of, thinking about veterinary behavior, I think sometimes this starts to look a bit like a pyramid through some lenses where we're like, oh, but by the time you get to that level, clearly you should know all the things. Oh, no, like somebody who has a background as a trainer, as a groomer, as a dog walker, as a veterinarian, as a business coach, all of those things, all of those people have things to teach me. And
Yeah.
so what can I learn and what can I share?
Yeah, oh my god, you just hit the nail on the head with that. I feel like a lot of us get into this and, it's something I definitely experienced when I was a trainer of just, I need to have all the answers. Anytime that my clients ask me a question, I need to be prepared. And I would go back to my husband, he's a trainer too, and I'd be like, oh, they asked me this question, I didn't have the answer. And he's like, well, you can just say that like, oh, you know what, I don't know right now, but let me, do a little thinking and I'll come back to you on that. And I'm like, you can say that? For some reason, I thought I needed to just
What?
show up like a book and be like, here you go. Just, I know all the things. Like, that's so unrealistic and setting us up to fail.
Yeah. And yet in reverse, like if I were to go to a professional, I would have zero expectation of them
Right.
that they would
Right.
know all the answers, right? And I don't need them to know all the answers,
Just
but
guide
I
me.
absolutely. And like what I want to know or need to know that you don't know, we'll figure it out. But yet somehow we put that lens on ourselves of, oh my gosh, but if I don't know all the things, I'm a failure. I'm not good enough.
I don't belong here. I shouldn't do this. I suck.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how different those lenses are when we're looking at someone else. And are we treating ourselves with the same level of compassion and care? that we would extend to someone else. And I would argue for myself as well, no, most of the time we don't. It's a different skill set.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it always goes back to, we show up for our clients. We want to have all this information for them. We want to have all this empathy and understanding, but we don't give that to ourselves.
Yeah.
In our professional life or our personal life, it's always putting the clients and their dogs ahead of us. And then we're burnt out. We have compassion fatigue. We don't want to do it anymore. And I wonder why.
And one of the things that comes up as you're saying that, Mandy, too, is I think that there was a point in my career as well. And this was probably, I'd have to go back to my notes to know when, somewhere between like '08 and maybe 2012, somewhere in that range. I remember having this realization with some really wise people around me that I was sort of calculating my self-worth and my contribution based on the outcome of the cases that I was managing. That's bullshit. We can't do that. Right. But how many of us
No.
do that, right? Where we're like, oh, that one went really well, therefore I'm good. That one went really poorly, therefore I suck. And I remember having some cases with, and again, with really wise people around me, that they were like, well, wait a minute. Okay, let's actually take a look at that case where, quote unquote, you sucked. And let's see, can we tease out what are the variables that may have gone well and may not have gone poorly? And what we were able to differentiate that, it's an exercise I've done with my team a couple of times since then, just because it's so profound, is to take a look at an average case and look at all of the things that need to come together for that sort of perfect outcome. And, and again, we're not going to go through all of the exercise here, but maybe it's, they've got to have the financial resources. They've got to have the dedication. They've got to have the mindset. They've got to have the skills. They have to be working with someone who knows the right answer. We've got to have a flexible learner. The animal in that case has to be willing to change their behavior. We have to have reinforcers we can leverage. We can run down this entire list. And when you really look at it, you might come up with 100 different variables. And I would argue probably only 15 or 18 of them are actually under
About
our
you.
control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
And so if 80% or whatever the number is, 60%, even 40%, if that's outside of our control, how could I possibly rate my value based on an outcome that
It
wasn't up to
varies.
me?
Yeah, it varies every time.
So what I love about that exercise, and we whiteboard it, we literally go through that exercise periodically to say, again, what things are under our control, what things
Yes.
aren't, and how do we look at that? And what it allowed me to do, and again, I don't want to imply that this is now something that's just in my wheelhouse and I do it perfectly every time, because I don't. I still struggle, I still stumble. But what I try to come back to is, did I put in an appropriate effort? Did I show up? Did I, to the best of my ability, was I rested? Did I take care of myself well enough to actually show up with some degree of expectation that I could do the job that is within my control? If I didn't, okay, then I have to own that I didn't actually show up to do my part of that, system that needed to happen. But if I did, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, right? There's a difference between sort of saying these things are out of my control, therefore I can't assign my my worth or my value based on that outcome. It's really tempting. And I went through this phase too, where then I was like, well, if it's outside of my control, then I'm just going to do what I do. And to heck with all y'all, you're going to do what you do. And I put up this sort of,
It's a wall almost, or a barrier, kind of.
exactly. And I was like, well, wait a minute. That's not helpful either, because now I'm actually detaching myself as a safety mechanism. I'm detaching myself from the work so I don't get hurt, that I don't have those expectations that get let down. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't feel right either.
Right. And that's just
So,
going to cause like a little resentment for your field and working with clients, because then you're just going to have this like weird feeling in here about it.
mhm.
Well, and like it's just there's something to be said of, finding your right clientele and catering to the clients that want to work with you, that, want to be invested in their dog, have the finances to do it, and have the time, have the bandwidth, whatever it is. But, it's also a matter of just making sure we're checking off our boxes. We're doing our protocol the way we are taught and the way we have evolved within our business to do it. And, if it doesn't work, that's okay. It doesn't mean that we suck. It might mean that there is something else going on with the client. It's not always a reflection of us and what we're doing. And if we feel that way, I like to sit down and kind of just tick through, okay, well, but I did this. I followed this protocol. I did this part. I made sure I touched on this. So it's not about me. Maybe they're perceiving it wrong. Maybe we need to find another way to talk about it and approach it to maybe change that. But knowing that we can't control how everyone takes everything in is a huge step. And I feel like that's something we tend to forget a lot in our industry because we just want to help, 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 help. But we realize we may not be the person to do the helping for this individual. Did that make sense?
It absolutely did, at least to me, right? I can take responsibility for my contribution, but I can't take responsibility for all of the things.
Right.
I just can't do that. And actually, one of the takeaways that sometimes comes out of this conversation is I remember when I was going through that particular stretch and had some really challenging client interactions that I was trying to navigate. And again, how do I show up in a way that I'm invested, but I'm not taking on all of the weight for all of the outcomes. And I remember, working with a veterinary social worker around that point in time and sort of coming up in my own mind, this idea that I'm not going to work harder, care more, or do more than my clients are willing or able to do in that moment. And it sort of allowed me to sort of identify the clients who were ready, who had the skills, who were invested, and I could match their energy level. And when we have those clients who are like, they show up 1000%, oh my gosh, it's so energizing and we can do so much. But if for whatever reason, if they can only show up with 10%,
Meet them there.
Meet them there. I'm going to give you 10% and I'll let you know what this, this situation, what it needs from you. I'll do my best to try to call that out, but I can't do the other 90% to get us up to a full tank. I can't do that. Or I can do it every once in a while.
Right.
And then I got to tag out, right? Otherwise, continuing to put that level of effort in, it's just not sustainable. And then that, it's another place where we get resentment and burnout, where I'm doing all the work. And guess what? The outcomes are still going to be pretty variable because there's still going to be stuff that's outside our control. And gosh, there's so many ways to sort of end up in that burnout situation for sure.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious. Have you had certain situations with certain clients where it's just been a real toll on your mental health as far as, I know all the things that you can encounter as a vet behaviorist.
Yeah. And I would say, again, this is not in past tense, right? There are ongoing client interactions that I navigate that for whatever reason, maybe it's my communication style just doesn't completely gel with a client, or I find that I'm repeating myself and every single appointment, feels like a Groundhog's Day moment where
it's just not clicking.
Right? I could cut and paste all of your discharge instructions and just repeat them back to you again because you just asked me the same question. And that could be a source of frustration. Or if I have the capacity in that moment to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing over and over, and it's not allowing us to gain any sort of traction. Let's call that out. And so before I would have tried to do all of that problem solving on my own. And again, I'm going to be good enough that I can figure this out on my own. These days, I'm more likely to actually just bring that up as a discussion point for the clients.
Really?
Hey, just asked me this question. I feel like I've answered that question a couple of times already. And so I'm just curious, are you hoping that the answer is different? Are you not recalling the information? Do you recall it, but it's just not landing? Can you help me to understand either how I could communicate that a little bit differently, or do we need to come at this question from a different angle in a way that allows that information to really gel? Help me to understand what you need from me. So I'll call it out now. And it's amazing how much clarity that tends to bring to those communications.
Is there kind of a shift when that happens?
Yeah. And it's not always a positive shift, I'll be honest, but it's a shift versus this sort of confusion of I don't know what I'm doing. I'm spinning my wheels. you're paying me money, which makes me feel sort of obligated to provide a service. And yet
Right.
we're not advancing our outcomes here in any way, shape, or form. And so when I do have the ability to call it out in that way, it either moves us closer to a solution, or I had one client who was like, no, this just isn't working for me either way, but I just keep showing up in hopes that it turns out differently, but I don't know what to do. I'm like, cool. Maybe we should actually have you do a session with one of my other doctors.
Right. Maybe you
Oh,
might vibe better. Yeah.
yeah, let's figure what other options do we have versus just continuing to do the same thing. But again, I think that's the difference now versus 20 years ago. I would have taken on the weight of that. Well, no, no, no. They reached out to me.
Right.
I have to help them. Sure. But it doesn't mean I have to be their helper.
Right. You can guide them to find, the right person that will be a good, perfect fit for them. Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Yes, 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 yes. I love this. Oh. So you were mentioning how you talk through all this and these protocols with your staff. Do you make a point of really communicating with your staff in having firm boundaries within work with clients? And what do those boundaries typically look like?
Yeah, we do talk. We do have those conversations, and right now I'm a part of or leading multiple teams. And I say that because the way in which I approach this or try to approach this is different depending on which team I'm working with.
Oh, okay.
So I've got my team at the Animal Behavior Clinic, which is I've got three other doctors on our team. We're adding a fourth one this summer. But we've got the other doctors. I've got my technicians. I've got my support staff, my client services coordinators, and the counselors in those roles. So we've got that team. I also have my team at Instinct Dog Behavior and Training Portland, which is my team here where we're moving into a new facility here in the next month or so, and everything that goes along with that. And there I'm actually a co-leader where I'm one of the co-owners of Instinct Portland. So it's not just about me and my voice and
Oh,
my vision. I have to then say, wait a minute,
that's
slow
so
my
many
roll,
hats.
right? And then I'm also on the leadership team for Instinct Inc., which is the
Right.
parent company. We've got 9 locations, 11 markets across the US right now. So when I have to kind of take off the day-to-day in the trenches hat and say, what do I think about from the development of a company standpoint?
Right.
They're different, right? And the way we show up within those conversations is different. So when I'm thinking about how do I approach those conversations with one of my teams and what do those boundaries look like, I would say that we have the conversation about boundaries, but I don't tend to script what those boundaries need to be unless there's a systems-based approach that needs to be there consistently across our team. And what I mean by that is, if we say, okay, a client is calling in about scheduling, we have a protocol for that, right? That's going to get directed to one of the folks who manages our schedule.
Right.
I'm not going to touch that. I don't want my technicians necessarily doing that. That's better handled by others, right? So there's certain things that are very, very protocol driven. And yet, if I were talking to any of my 3 doctors and how they were perhaps going to navigate a particularly difficult conversation with a client, we might be having 3 very different conversations because their communication style is different. Their way of putting those boundaries into practice is going to be different from mine, but we can still have a conversation about what boundaries are, how to maintain them, how to communicate them, how to see boundaries as clarity rather than
Mm,
barriers,
I like that.
and setting everybody up to be successful. Because and I think about this like an adolescent dog, for example, or a puppy. If we're not consistent in the feedback that we're giving to that learner, the only way for them to really sort of ask the question of what the boundary is to keep pushing.
Pushing and testing. Yeah, they got to see what works.
Right. And so like when we remember that, like just the basics, well, the basics of the same thing is going to be true for my teams, for my clients, that as long as I know, hey, here is the boundary, I need to express that. I need to make sure that it's been heard and comprehended. And then I just need to maintain it. I don't need to double down. I don't need to be aggressive about it. I just need to say, this is the boundary and I can hold a line on that. And
I love,
yeah,
yeah, that you're, well, because I feel like a lot of times we think of boundaries as barriers and just like, this is a wall, you are not crossing it. This is for my mental health. But it does help provide clarity and setting that tone with the clients because it's just helping them get more information of knowing how you operate your business, when you're going to communicate, how to get a hold of you. Oh, I love that. Yeah, boundaries are clarity.
Boundaries are clarity. And
Oh,
it's
I love
amazing
that.
how many times when I was feeling frustrated by a client, maybe it's the client who is emailing me at all hours of the night, or they're
Right.
sending me a daily email with 37 questions, or
Just
whatever the
debriefing
frustration,
you every day with, yeah.
right? Like here's my journal, doc. Here, in those cases where when I find myself sort of like going, oh my God, I can't do this again. I try to remember again, this is not something I do consistently, but when I glitch on that, I try to say, okay, wait a minute. Is there a boundary here that I either have not maintained or I forgot to express?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to remember all of them too, and so sometimes you gotta go in and be like, "Oh, wait, forgot that one."
Totally forgot that one. So that may be the opportunity to say, like, and truly coming back to the client, say, hey, I just realized
I never communicated that. My bad.
I never work, right? So the
Right.
best way to send me email updates is every 10 to 14 days, send an update into the office. I will round with my team. We'll get you the answers you're looking for. If it's more than we can handle via email, awesome. They'll get you scheduled in for a recheck. How does that land for you? We can do that at any point within that relationship if we've forgotten or we've let it slip. And again, I think that's more that sort of calling it out, not as a reprimand. Hey, you violated my boundary. Nope, not helpful.
Sometimes people just need the reminder, we're
Yeah,
human, we forget things a lot of the time. We have a lot to keep
absolutely.
track of, and I think we forget that. We like to remind our clients that we're human, but we seem to forget our clients are human, and sometimes they need a prompt as well.
So well said. So well said.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and just coming back to that clarity, this is how we work, and maybe even sometimes there will be clients, coming back to some of those difficult scenarios where this client may have a different way of communicating, and we actually don't have a protocol for that, and so we then have to kind of circle back around and say, hey, this is new information, and I actually have to change the script on you a little bit. And I understand that that may not land so positively for you. And I do apologize for that. And also, this is how we need to, if I'm going to be the one to help you, this is how we need to be able to function. Does that work?
Right. I love that, and that's something I've experienced. I do a lot of, branding and logos and stuff like that for dog trainers, and the communication in that and revisions, and I always just kinda preface with, "Look, here are all the different ways you can give me feedback. If you are having a hard time articulating that, let's schedule a meeting. This is when we can schedule meetings." And they're just like, "Well, okay, like, I really appreciate that," and you just have all these bases covered so that, like, I'm giving them insurance, like, "Okay, this doesn't work. Okay, how about this? This will work, this will work." Like, just there's some way that I will be able to scoop you up if you are feeling unhelped. That word didn't work, but yes.
No, it totally works. I love it. And that's the confidence, right? That's the trust that comes through within that working relationship. And
Yeah.
and and I think sometimes, coming back to something we were talking about earlier, like sometimes I feel like we have to have all of that nailed down in the beginning. And yet you don't know what that conversation is going to look like.
No, you
And
develop it
so
as you go. You learn as you
yeah,
go. That's
absolutely.
evolving and growth.
And within a trust relationship, within a relationship that has a certain degree of safety, we can create vulnerable moments, right? To say, hey, you know what? This isn't working for me. I need to give you some feedback, but I'm going to be honest. I'm scratching my head and I don't know how to do this right. I don't know how to do it well. This is going to get a little awkward. It just is. And is now a good time to have a really weird conversation?
Right,
Maybe
but
yes,
I
maybe no.
I feel like 9 times out of 10, people will actually really respect and appreciate that vulnerability in you being honest with that. I know that I have encountered that several times with my own clientele, and they're just like, "Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to say that." And I'm like, "Oh my god, cool," because I was overthinking that for like 5 days and didn't know how to write the email, but it took you 20 minutes to respond and be okay with it. Like, that's usually how it happens.
No. Yeah, yeah. It's like break it down. Let's make this as simple as possible. And I think that for me is the, versus, how do I communicate all of the nuance? I'm just gonna call it up by say, I don't know how to do this right. I got
Right.
some stuff I need to share. I'm not
Let's
sure
hop on
the
a
best way.
call.
Yeah. What do we need to do? How do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing of knowing that it's okay. We don't have to articulate every single thing in text and email because it's so hard to hear the conviction in the nuance and things. And there's nothing wrong with being the professional and saying, hey, you know what? Let's hop on a call. Here's my availability because they will appreciate you taking the time to notice that you guys got to talk through something. And, 9 times out of 10, your clients are going to respect that and appreciate you taking the time to articulate that to them.
And what I love about that too, and especially when, within the behavior practice, at least, if I'm hopping on a call, unless it's a quick little clarity sort of a call,
Right.
it's going to be a recheck, right? If we need to change the plan, I've got to review the chart. I'm going to be making some notes afterwards. And so there's going to be a price tag associated with that. And just being really honest and transparent around that allows me to say, I can't, coming back to that whole working harder, caring more, doing more thing, I can't spend 3 hours diving through 142 pages of chart notes
Oh,
if there's not some sort of financial compensation on the end of that, which does not make me
right.
a money hungry veterinarian. It makes me somebody who actually needs to keep doing this for the next 2 decades. And I have staff that I need to pay for that. And so I'm not going to apologize for that. That's simply, this is how we do this. I am so excited to answer those questions for you. The way I can do that is within a call, and we'll schedule that for Tuesday. If that works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, that's okay too. How would you like to move forward?
Yes, and giving them that choice and not saying like, "No, we can only do a call. This is your only option." Giving them the opt out and just letting them have the choice is huge. Oh my god, Chris, we are just checking so many boxes off right now. I love this. This is oh, it's so good. This is why I've been looking forward to this conversation. I just knew it was gonna mesh and flow. So I want to dig in a little more on your personal boundaries you have with work. So obviously you have tons of staff, so you are able to delegate and task things out and hone in on the things that you're good at, which I feel like a lot of us it takes time to figure that out. So I'm curious where you have learned to delegate, task things out, and kind of preserve yourself a little bit more for that.
Yeah, I'll start out by telling you the things that I think I do well.
Oh yes, please do.
And then I'll tell you where I still am in. Well, I almost said I am a failure. No, no, no. Where I failed to do this thing well. So on the positive side, I've learned to ask over the years, having some team members, and some of it happened out of necessity, right? Where I needed to step away, whether it's because of a short-term illness or something, where I was like, I just have to trust that my team is as as filled with as much conviction to do this right and well
Right.
as I am. And lo and behold, it turns out probably even better than it would have turned out if I had done it myself. Right. So
I
I had
love when
some of
that
those
happens.
experiences. Oh my gosh, well, it's amazing. No, I've had those experiences where I've sort of learned to surround myself with people who again, they also don't always know the answers, but I know that they are as committed to the same end goal as I am.
Mhm.
And if they're not at some point in time, that I'm gonna, bless and release and wish them well on the next chapter of their journey. But in the meantime, we're doing these things well. So I can say, hey, am I the best person to handle this particular task? If I am not the absolute best person to do it, then I don't have any business taking the reins on that one just because I'm the business owner. It's like, no, 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 you, and we can do all of those things. So I love that piece. And someone, first name Veronica, was really helpful for me in understanding how to do that within the business model. Going back to a place where I was starting to expand the ABC practice and was starting to get swallowed alive by just trying to be the one to do all the things. And so she was amazingly helpful in really helping me to figure out what pieces, what systems needed to be in place. So that, we're a decade later, probably at this point in time from when I really worked with Veronica the first time, and amazingly helpful, right? So I love that. And I think we do a really good job in the practice of delegating and handing off responsibility and trying not to double handle tasks and
Nice.
all of those things. Where I'm not great is accurately predicting how long individual tasks are actually going to take.
Oh, yeah. I feel that. I
So,
always underestimate,
oh
always.
my gosh, always, always. And so, I would say that's probably the biggest source of ongoing struggle and lack of effective boundaries. I'm well intentioned, but I'm genuinely not good at it. And so I commit to things that I want to do versus committing to the things that I have the capacity to do. And then it becomes that never-ending to-do list that I will never actually catch up on. And unfortunately, then I end up with times where I've overpromised and I'm under delivering because I just don't have the capacity to do that. And gosh, I'm just, this week is my first full week back in the office again after being out of country for about 10 days for a family member's wedding down in Cartagena, Colombia. And for the first time in quite a few years, actually, I shut down all of my email and just shut it off. And I took it off of my phone. I was like, I'm on vacation. And so I came back after being away essentially one full week, and there was around 1,200 emails or so that all needed to be dealt with in some way, shape, or form, whether that was sort of read in file or actually this is something that I need to deal with. And so I got that 1,200 down to about 180 or so that actually needed my attention.
Really quick, before you even just, like, went to tackle them, like, were you just feeling all the, like, overwhelm? Because I feel like seeing that number, it's like, "Oh, I'm sweaty and clammy."
It was a lot. It was a lot. And I knew it was gonna be a lot. And I basically told myself before I opened up the inbox,
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah.
yeah, it was sort of like, let's just count this back from 10. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. It is what it is. And in fact, I found myself actually channeling some of the things that I would often tell my clients of dogs with separation anxiety, where if they had to leave the dog home alone and there was a possibility that they were going to walk in, the dog may have urinated or may have destroyed something. Before you put the key in the lock, roll your shoulders, crack your neck, give a shake
Yeah.
off,
Oh, I love that,
do what you
yeah.
need to do so you can walk in as neutral as possible because it is what it is, right? Adding additional stress to that, it's not going to make that 1,200 number magically go to 4,
No.
right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. And that's where a lot of the anxiety and the stress comes from. At least for me, it's when I want something different than what the reality that's facing me actually is.
Right. Not gonna
If I
make
can
it
just
any easier, though.
It doesn't. No, I mean, it's so hard to remember that. But that was the strategy for me. It was like, you know what? It is what it is. I'll do my best. And, I had my out of office messaging, and
Right,
then I
so
had
people knew.
exactly. Like, yeah, I'm coming back on Tuesday and I'll do the best I can to get through this as efficiently as possible. And then I changed my out of office for a day or so. I am back. I am here.
I'm playing catch up.
I'm in a little bit of overwhelm right now. So I'll get to you. I promise. We'll get there. But it's part of that process of again, sort of the delegation piece. What can I pass off to someone else? Truly, what do I need to handle? And can I accurately organize my life in such a way that allows me to do that within a reasonable number of work hours that's not all consuming.
Right. Or
And
you're
that is the
emailing
place to
all
be.
day.
Absolutely. Oh, it's so many emails. So many emails. So I wouldn't say that I'm the model that anybody should look to for how to actually create a 30-hour work week or a 36-hour work week. If you want to do a lot in a 70-hour work week, I'm probably a guy you can look to, but you know what? I'm still a work in progress on that one.
But that's okay, and you acknowledge that, and that's huge, and you still have tons of playtime, and you prioritize yourself, anyone that is Facebook friends with you will see that. Like, "Look at him, he's going for a run with his partner. He just sold his RV. He just went to Colombia. He just went here," like, and it's so cool to see that because it's like, I see you prioritizing your mental health. I see you having boundaries with your work. I see you having your time to recharge and recoup after work. And it's like, hell yeah. Like, that's what people should be thinking of when, how do you want your business to look? Do you want to be at your desk all day, every day, 6, 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.? No. And if you do that, you are not going to have the downtime you want to play. And I am someone who will get in that cycle of working nonstop, won't take a vacation. And then, I wonder why I'm burnt out at snapping at my poor husband and, wanting to rip his head off. So, yes. But it's the play is so much more important. And I have learned so much of that from Veronica. She gets mentioned in these episodes so much, I swear. But, I am related to someone who takes play so seriously. And anytime I am around her, like, it's like, no, we are playing. We are having our fun and we are having our playtime. If we want to talk about work, let's set aside a day to talk about work. And I'm like, damn, she's really serious, even though like her whole business is about work. Like, what the hell?
Right? Right. And I love having people in my life who remind me of some of
Yes, we need that
those
prompt.
important things. Absolutely. And I think in my household, Robert and I have very different styles where he tends to be more of a, work 12 hours, but then take 3 days off. Like,
Right.
do
That's
it,
nice.
get it all done, and then take the time off. Whereas I tend to be, I might start work on an average day. I'm at my computer by probably 5:15 or so in the morning.
Woo!
And right, yeah. So I, it's like I wake up, I roll out of bed, I grab a cup of coffee, and I'm usually on my laptop, and like that's what and yet I do that for like 2 hours, and then I'm off to the gym, and I've got
Okay,
yoga,
see,
and I've got social
yeah,
time,
you
and
chunk
then
it
I'm back.
out.
Absolutely. And so I might have a 15-hour day, but not really.
Right, and you had your windows. That's yes. Oh my god, I've never explained it that way, but that is exactly how my husband and I are. Because he will just chunk it out and be like, "Let's get it done, hunker down, put my head in the sand, and then we'll have a couple days off." And I'm like, I want to read these emails, remove some anxiety. Okay, I'm going to go hike the dog, drink my coffee, read a book. All right, it's like 8 a.m. Let me come back to this, do a
Yes.
couple things for a couple hours, take another break. And I think that helps me enjoy work more and not
Yeah.
hate it so much. And I actually want to go back to it because I get those little breaks. And I know not everyone
Yeah.
has that wiggle room, but when you're able to make your business your own and create it in that way, it is so helpful, so beneficial to your mental health because you're finding ways to prioritize yourself.
And what I love about that is, just in the way that Robert and I function, if I tried to adopt his strategy, I would burn out in 4 days.
Right.
And the reverse is also true. That if he was
Right.
trying to sort of tap in and out of work and a little bit take a break, little bit take a break, he'd be like, oh my God, I'm now working for 15 hours. No, I can't do that. And so, I think what I love, about that sort of conversation is that my strategy doesn't have to be your strategy.
Oh, it's taken me years to figure that out. And,
Right.
9 years of a relationship to figure out like we're not the exact same. Like, what?
Oliver and I have been together 23 years now,
Oh
and
my gosh.
it's still a work in progress. Right? It's like, is this one of those times where you're mad about this one thing, but it's showing up in this other way? Let's
Right.
talk it out, buddy. Let's talk it out.
But it's important to notice where like our brain doesn't operate the same as everyone else's. No one is going to be able to operate the exact same way. And I feel like, again, like this is how it has been in the dog training industry for however long. We see, other people that are on platforms and talking at conferences and they're doing it this way. Therefore, I guess we should do it that way because that's the only way we're seeing it done. But that's not true. And I'm talking to a lot of younger trainers that are changing it and changing their business to work for them. And I'm just like scooping my jaw off the ground because I'm so proud to see those changes happen. And I know that that ripple effect is going to slowly happen.
And I love the way you say that. And especially, if we're looking at someone who is, maybe they're seeing clients 5 days a week and they're sort of, the proverbial sort of in the trenches, right?
Right.
And they're seeing someone on the lecture stage or someone who's just crushing it on social media. And there's that sense of, yeah, I should do that too. If I'm going to be successful, that's what success looks like. It's just different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. It's a different reinforcer. It's a different way of expression. It's a different ripple effect. Not better, not worse, just different. And so, with that being said, if that's the ripple you want,
Go
what
for
are
it.
you doing to achieve it? Go for it.
Right.
But try not to automatically assume that just because someone is finding success or visibility or profitability or whatever the measure happens to be, that therefore that needs to be your metric that you're judging yourself on. It just doesn't, it's not a healthy way to go about it.
Or that's the only way to do it. I mean, the global pandemic, we had that one way of training and then everybody went virtual. No one was virtual before, and now everyone is. People are starting their businesses just being virtual. So if that can happen, I imagine most of us can start businesses the way we want to start them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh God, absolutely. There's so many ways to do it. And I think, sometimes it's a leap of faith. It's courage, but it's also, I think for me, it's surrounding yourself with people who actually do see things differently than you do, that can act as a sounding board. And you're like, hey, if I want to get on this pathway, can you help me to get some clarity around what the
Right.
heck am I doing here?
Or, hey, you did it this way. I'm thinking of doing it this way. What do you think? Do you think
Yeah.
that could grow that way? And the
Yeah.
right people around you will help build that. And the wrong people that talk you out of it, just get them out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. They may be helpful for some people, but they're not helpful for you right now. And that's okay.
Right.
And that's, I've got people that sort of fill that role within my life. And in some aspects of my life, they're my go-to, but I would never in a million years ask them for business advice. Like, no. Oh, but it's a terrible idea. Great person. Terrible idea.
I know. I tell my friends, I'm like, come to me for like business talk, not like personal life talk. Like personal life, it's like, I'm good, but like, I'm not going to give you advice on that.
Not my circus, not my monkeys, right? Like, I'm like, no, that's, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, knowing who to go to and when, and, there's so many just incredible leaders out there in the field when it comes to sort of personal development and coaching people on how do you not only seek out those people who can give you feedback that's going to be meaningful, but how do you actually sort of kind of tune out the voices that you wouldn't have asked for an opinion in the first place? How do you tune that out? Not because you've put up such a wall that you're repelling all of that, but just say, yeah, that's not feedback that I need to listen to right now. Thank you for offering what you thought was going to be helpful, and I'm good. How do you do that, right? What does that look like without being disrespectful or dismissive? And
Yeah. How do you do that?
so yeah, that's almost pretty good. Oh,
You're like, I walked into that. Yeah.
I totally did. That was not my intention. No, it's I think it's it depends on what role I'm filling within that moment.
Okay.
And there's so many people out there, whether it's family or friends or business colleagues who truly want to be helpful. And unfortunately, they offer unsolicited feedback. And so they're jumping in with solutions before you asked for help. Right.
Right.
And so one of the things that I try to do in those moments is that if somebody's offering me a solution and if my brain says, yeah, but, or no, I kind of go with the defensive way. I try to pause and say, hey, that's great feedback. I appreciate you sharing what's worked for you, and then just change the subject.
Oh my
Acknowledging the
gosh.
gift of that feedback, but not feeling like I need to embrace it. I don't need to adopt it. I don't need to even respond to it. I can simply say, thank you for offering your perspective on my situation. I'm grateful that you took the time to do that. Awesome. Do you want to grab a coffee? And then we just change the subject and do something else. Right.
I feel like that's so similar to, social media in the comments, people get negative comments on social media, and it's very easy to, and I will speak from firsthand. It's very easy to be reactive and respond from emotion, in past experiences, in past encounters, but having that moment of pause and like, okay, this isn't about me, and they're just trying to be helpful or trying to give more information that was not prompted, and relate on a level that like we're not even asking for. And so, yeah, I think that's just so healthy and it takes time to develop that pause and have that. I'm going on 33 and it has taken me years to not be reactive and mean. And bless my husband for putting up with me learning to do that and not be reactive.
It's hard. It's so hard. I remember having a conversation with my therapist a while back, and I was early on in this particular aspect of some of the work that I was doing. And she, brilliant, brilliant therapist, she was really good at noticing the changes in my body language.
Oh,
And like just like we do all the time when we're working
minimal.
with
Yeah.
dogs, right? Right. But rather than pointing it out to me, she would simply ask me to pause. So we had a dialogue around that. And she said, "No, quick body scan. What feels different in this moment?"
Yeah.
And so for me, I started to recognize if I tense up my lips, that's one of my first triggers. It's like, ooh, 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 emergency brake. Okay. I need space. I need time. I need a window.
Yes.
What is that going to look like? Right. So, how do we do that? How do we start to develop those pauses in a ways that allows us to respond, again, when we look to the unsolicited feedback piece, even just to acknowledge, thanks for taking the time to weigh in on this. You must be crazy busy. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you, and move on. And the reverse is also true, which I'm also not consistently good at. And that is, before I offer my opinion, ask whether or not my opinion is desired. I have
Right.
some thoughts about your situation. Would now be a good time to share? Do you want feedback, or do you just want me to listen?
Yes. Oh my God, that's so huge. So huge. And yet that is a skill that we all really need to learn. That is something I encounter with friends all the time. And they'll vent to me and I'm like, "Okay, should I give advice?" And then I'm like, wait, okay, so what do you need in this moment? Do you need me to listen? Do you want me to give advice? And then they'll be like, "Oh, well, I actually really appreciate you asking that." And then it just changes the whole dynamic. Yeah. And I think that comes back to the whole, having the empathy and the compassion and clarity.
I totally agree. And there's so many places where we all get tripped up. And again, we see this in the dogs that we work with all the time, right? They're trigger stack. There's all of those things going on. And the more they're navigating in terms of stress, the harder it is for them to access those skills, even when they have fluency in those skills. When they're below threshold, those skills become less and less accessible. And I think, there's so many lessons we can learn there, about ourselves, that if we're recognizing that we're going into reactive mode, our fuse is short, we're responding in ways that are maybe not the way we would like to show up. How can we change those antecedent conditions? How can we reset? What would it look like to decompress? What do we need? Maybe it's a hug. Maybe it's, a drink of water.
A
Maybe
good
it's
cry.
5 seconds of
Yeah.
silence. A good cry. Right? All of those things have value, right? At different points in time.
Oh God, yeah. No, you're so right. And I'd like to touch on before I let you get going. It's just I'm really curious how you've worked so hard to have this boundary with your work and your mental health and be able to have this fun time because you are such a busy, busy, busy dude. And I'm so curious how you make it all work in such a, kind of question, but really like, how do you find that balance and enjoyment and love what you do still?
The honest answer, I don't know. Uh,
Hey.
I I don't know. It's something that I'm incredibly grateful for it. I love that I've been fortunate enough to not only sort of find myself in situations that I had the ability to make choices that allowed me to sort of continue to lean into things that fed me rather than depleted me. And I also I credit to some degree, I credit my parents for helping me to cultivate a really strong work ethic, and also recognizing, and this is where I kind of have to go both sides here, recognizing that well, how should I put this? I've been on somebody's payroll since I was 11. Like it, legitimately that is the case. And so I've been working forever. And what I have to remember, and I have people in my life now who remind me, that's not always the healthiest model to follow.
Oh, yeah.
So in some ways, like I'm able to do a lot of things because that's what I do, right? I've got really good models in my life who are doers of things. And so I grew up that way. But it's also taken me a lot of work to recognize that being the doer of things without taking time is not healthy. I'm aware that there's a lot of, without going in a health related direction too far down this pathway, there's a lot of heart disease in my family. My dad had his first heart attack at 43. I'm already older than he was when he had his first heart attack, and he's still with us, which is amazing. He's now in his 70s. Never would have thought that was the case but I'm reminded, right? If
Right.
I were to just do, and without being conscious of my resting heart rate, without checking my heart rate variability, without, knowing those things, I would probably put myself in an early grave. And that's not what I want my life
Right.
to be like. So I kind of have to. So I don't know if there's an answer in there somewhere, but I'm grateful that I do get to do what I love every single day. I'm working on not taking on more than I can actually accomplish, but I'm grateful that everything on my list is something that I've agreed to because I believe in it.
I love that everything on your list is something you've agreed to, which is hard in itself because it's difficult to say no to things. When we are doers and just want to get things done and let's just keep it going, but learning to say no is self-care
Back
because
to boundaries.
yeah, and it's not even no doesn't need to be a wall, it's clarification of I don't have the spoons and I'm not gonna take on more than I'm capable of because I know how I end up when I do that. And some of us, it takes I hate this view that burnout is necessarily a bad thing because it shows us where we are lacking in taking care of ourselves, and I have burnt out so many times in the last several years to the point where I was working, maybe one work day and then depressed the rest of the week because I couldn't do it. I couldn't get to that point because I wasn't taking care of myself. And so it's just being able to notice that and be like, okay, I need to start saying no to the things that aren't going to actually help me, saying yes to the things that fill me up, make me feel good about what I do, utilize my skill in the best way possible. That's just going to make you feel better over time. And then I feel like eventually we find those ways to, I don't want to say prevent burnout because it's never easy to prevent, but I think it helps us learn how to bounce back from it.
Recognize it earlier the next time around. Like, oh,
Yeah,
wait a minute.
I'm getting that feeling. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing too. And again, it's a learning process.
Yeah.
And the tells that I have now at this stage in my life, they look different than they did a decade ago. It
Of course.
feels different in my body. It feels different in terms of the things that I'm being asked to do. And so again, none of this is past tense. None of this is, oh, now I know what to do. Nah, I'm doing the best I can with the tools I've got available to me right now. And sometimes it's good enough and sometimes it's not. And both of those are okay.
Yes. I love that you touch on it's current, it's present, it's not past tense because, growth isn't linear, progress isn't linear, success is not linear. It is all a wave and we are constantly riding it and figuring it out. And if you see people who you think are successful, know that we are all working hard and struggling and hitting these same roadblocks that you guys are. It's just we've hit the roadblocks enough times where we've learned, okay, this is happening. I'm noticing this. How do I take care of myself in this situation? What can I do? What can I move around? And how am I going to bounce back and come back stronger?
Who can I lean on until I'm ready to tackle it
Yes.
again?
Yes. Delegating and being able to lean on others for support, whether that be from, Facebook group, mentorship, business coach, whatever it may be. And I think, our industry has been so isolating for so many years, and we're just now learning that we can lean on each other and that not everyone is competition.
Yes. Could not agree with that more. It's one of the things I love so much about with the teams that I'm a part of is that, especially thinking about my team at ABC, even though I sort of take on a lot of the responsibility as the sole owner of the company, all I have to do is draft an email to the team that says, I need a day. Within 4 minutes, I've got a reply back from every member of the team. Take your time. We got you. I'm like, what?
That has to feel so good.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And they have me because they know I have them.
Great. You guys have that system.
Yeah, it's in there.
Well, this has just been such a little nugget of mental health joy. I love it. Oh, you are so awesome to talk to on this topic. So I really appreciate you coming on. Really quick, do you have any advice for anyone that is looking to become a vet behaviorist, working towards it, someone that is working towards becoming a trainer? Any little nuggets of wisdom you have to give them?
Yeah, I think, there's so many different ways to be helpful in the field of animal behavior. And I think for me, and then again, this comes back to, whether you're working as a trainer, as, a trainer assistant, a behavior consultant, a veterinarian, a veterinary behaviorist, we can all work together. So number one, it's also not a competition. It's not a stratification. Nobody's, in my opinion, better or worse. We just have different tools in our toolbox. And so for me, I really try to, if I'm sort of reflecting that back to someone, I try to figure out not necessarily what do you want to do, but what tools do you want to have in your toolbox. If you want to be able to prescribe and really understand medical issues, cool. Then veterinary behavior, that may be your path. If you're like, no, I'd rather farm that out to someone else, but I really want to focus on, troubleshooting and problem solving behavior mod plans, cool. Then going down the path of being a behavior consultant is probably your route forward. But maybe that's not your path either. So trying to gain clarity around, as best you can, what
Right.
tools do you want to have at your disposal? And that's going to set that process in motion. And quite honestly, find somebody who's already doing what you want to do and ask them about what their life looks like, because it may not be the picture you thought it was. And
Right.
wouldn't it be great to find that out before you spend a lot of time and effort going down that pathway to get there and go, oh, crap. Now what? So ask questions.
I love that. I love that you touch on asking people who are already in it, because I feel like a lot of times we don't feel like we can, but 9 times out of 10, like they are willing to share and help others grow and share that insight. So yeah, ask people.
Ask. Okay. And coming back to that community, right? We're all in this in some way, shape, or form. And if somebody is successful doing what they're doing, they probably want to share that, right? There's at least a little
Right.
bit of ego in there that we might be able to tap into. Like, hey, how did you get so good at what you do? Blah. People are going to talk about it, right? So gather the information as you can.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a great way to end the episode. Thank you so much for coming on and gracing me with your presence. I really hope that I can have you on for another episode, because I'm sure we can go on to a whole other tangent.
I'm reasonably confident that that will not be a problem. The content and scheduling. So yeah, let me know when that works. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you today, Mandy.
And if you found this podcast helpful, you like what we're doing here at The Leash Mind, leave a comment, subscribe, tag us on social media. Just give us a little R+. And we'll be back with another episode.